these. There's huge food shortages. If we're able to use AI to increase crop yields, we're talking about whole populations that now have access to a food supply that they otherwise didn't have. There's also like the broader implications on well-being in developing countries that they don't have access to these things currently.
I think it's great. And I want to go back. I love the conversation about who are we really? When we use these tools to become funnier, to think about where we fit, I think that's a really interesting question, especially as I've looked into the well-being area. I was just introduced to a fantastic story about an organization that's working to use augmented reality and cognition work in order to help people who have no mobility interact and have conversations and be part of the workforce, even if they are unable to move, even speak, and be able to be part of that. And so I think there's this question, in that instance, I would say that person is capable of being themselves more than they've ever been capable prior to this kind of technology being introduced. And so I think we have these unique opportunities to question if that's really who we are, but also to give people a voice and give them an opportunity for those who've never had access to that kind of connection. And I'm really excited for that side of the well-being.
The question who we are, it's not a philosophical panel, but I think we're the animal we don't want to be. I think that's a philosophical answer. And I think there must be, or there will be, a shift at Descartes. I think therefore I am a very self-centered vision of personal health and well-being. I think maybe this is maybe part of the problem we are facing now, because this has moved us into where we are today. And I don't know whether this is the way forward, but it might be the way forward if we think of a past dependency. I think another way to think of humanity, of being human, is that I'm just human because we share something. And if we share something as a human, we owe each other. And I think that's maybe a nicer proposition. When we owe each other, we need morality which balance that mutual dependency, because we have maybe self-interest issues, etc. And the big problem is, if morality is needed to manage that relationship, we face a deep crisis of morality. And I think this needs to be addressed as well, in terms of labor, what does it mean, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think these big questions, and not the big questions of what is morality, we are not getting into that, was not in the description. These big questions about what does it mean, how do we set it up, I think really ties into something else I want to get your opinions on, which is how are we structured, how is the industry and the broader AI automation technology industry, how are we set up today? Do you think we're set up today in a way that will foster success and some of these mostly positive outcomes that we've been talking about here? Do you think we're not set up for that? How would you characterize our current approach to the AI and automation industry as it stands today in relation to our dialogue about the economy, being, and the future? I would love your takes.
Are we set up for success or failure? We're, I think, standing at the crossroads right now. There's a fork in the road. And I think very easily we could find ourselves not set up to be very successful in this endeavor that we're all engaged in. And I think we think of lessons learned from the past, right? What were the warning signs in different areas? Does innovation in financial markets create a more robust economy, a rising tide that lifts all boats and benefits everybody? Yes, until it doesn't. Global financial crisis, 2008. Does creating a world of interconnectedness where you can reach out and share your personal experiences with others and participate in their personal experiences and communicate through social media to your friends and family, wherever they may be in this world. Does that create a rising tide that lifts all boats and benefit everybody? Yes, until it doesn't. Your data is stolen and used to manipulate political elections, Cambridge Analytica. So I think that we are faced with this same moment in artificial intelligence at the cusp of what we are creating right now, where we need to ensure that we don't have these negative outcomes that we see, from single centralized control by banks on Wall Street, the single centralized control by Meta or Facebook or big tech in Silicon Valley, that we are actually creating a diverse economy with many participants who have an equal voice in how they participate, what they say in terms of creating new products and development in this space, or how they participate as a consumer or a user of artificial intelligence products. And I think that for me, this is the most important thing to solve, the most important problem to solve right now, very quickly, to make sure that we are, in fact, set up for success, not failure in this space, because the transformation has already begun and it is happening at a pace that none of us are really prepared for, I think.
Yeah, I wonder if we're talking about setting ourselves up for success, it means that we have the agency to say, this is the direction we're going to go with AI. And I wonder if we have that, because sometimes I think we're just at the mercy of where technology is taking us. And there's all kinds of incentive structures and other motivations. People develop new algorithms and new models because they can. It's the intellectual challenge. Or if somebody can invent something new and make $1 billion with it, they're probably going to do it, right? There's already incentives. But I think all these market forces are just taking us somewhere where we don't really have that much choice in where we're going. Now, having said that, I'm very encouraged by, and that relates to what Dennis described about the diversity in the diverse landscape, that there's a lot of sharing in the AI world as well. There's a lot of open source models. A lot of the research is being shared weeks after it comes out. And that allows people with different interests to also use it in different ways. That encourages me a lot.
I think it's interesting to see when the big deregulation happened in the 80s and 90s of maybe 80 or 100 years of a monopoly structure in the rich world. And then there was this trust in the internet, it was very open, etc. And I think that what we see today is actually a return of sovereignty, a great re-regulation, and the government takes a lot of initiative to have this kind of digital sovereignty. In principle, it's positive. The problem is, of course, there's a lot of protections involved, etc. But the government cannot sort that out in the long run through regulation. I think it's a societal issue where society has to pick up, to adapt, but how does society or business do it? So it's not so easy. And one way what we tried now, back I'm from Berlin, Germany, what we tried, so there's an industry, it's a construction industry, 99% is SME. I think in Europe it applies more small than medium or big size, and they don't have the capacity, each company, to actually pick up with that speed. And so we came back and actually we suggested to set up a cooperative, of basically a non-for-profit organization legal structure. The company become a member, has a one vote, and then starting actually to say, okay, we want to go this direction and we go in that direction. So it's a kind of a rebalancing of power of some big tech, which otherwise, just take the data or not take the data, but they have the data and then they offer the solutions, etc. And it goes a little bit into your direction where you have technology which can enable that, like blockchain, etc. Or you need some new innovative organization structures in order to have this self-empowerment.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Personally, I am a very optimistic person. I even have resting friendly face. I am just always happy. But this is the one time that I am pessimistic. If I had to define our structure and our setup in this space, I think we're designed for apathy. And I think we're only designed for reaction. I don't see a lot of conversations, at least on the economy, being human interaction, coexistence front, that makes me feel very proactive. That doesn't mean there aren't some great cases out there, and some of you might have them, but as a general infrastructure, the way the incentives are set up are not aligned there. So I am really concerned, personally, about how we're structured, and it does take initiatives to get past that. And I think that's been a segue into something that I'd love to hear from everyone, which is, do you have any specific proactive solutions or recommendations that you think we should be taking to get to this, forgive me for overspeaking, harmonious coexistence of humans and machines? What would be something that you think is a proactive strategy towards that end?
I can speak from a business perspective. So at Delegate, what we're doing is we have a comprehensive training program for all of our agents, our workforce, to empower them to utilize AI in their daily tasks, responsibilities. And that's obviously has benefits to our business in the short to medium term, but in the long term, we want them to have personal agency. I give the example, I had an operations manager. For years, she was developing these beautiful ceramic bowls just for herself, friends, and whatnot. But she doesn't have an entrepreneurial bone in her body. As far as her skill set, she doesn't have these skills. She has that entrepreneurial bone. And since starting to utilize AI, she now has that skill set where she can, tomorrow, if she leaves our company, she will be very successful in that creative endeavor that she's pursuing. It's, from a business perspective, it's a matter of retooling your workforce so they're set up for success, not at some other company, but for themselves.
I think with the pace that AI has been developing, it encourages us to look very short term, because it's hard to make long-term investments if you don't know what AI is going to look like 9 months from now. So everybody is looking at these short-term implementations of AI in the next step, etc. I think very few people are looking at the medium to long term. And I think that would be helpful if we really want to make sure that AI is going to benefit us as a society, to start thinking about the 5 to 10 year term. How is AI going to change the way we communicate? How is it going to change the way we see our identities, our autonomy? How is it going to affect things like trust, maybe even the concept of truth in society? And those are very difficult questions, but I think those are the key questions that we need to think about if we want to steer AI in a good direction.
I wish it was very practical. I think some of the enemies of our today's democracy or society is pessimism, relativism, and skepticism before anything else. So we should really look into that. The other one is, capitalism was an anti-movement, not towards communism, but to feudalism, what was before in Germany, and also to nationalism in that one, and later became the opposite of communism. And what it means actually, maybe we have an unfinished capitalism, maybe we should finish it. And when you look at the etymological origin of the word profit, it means to solve problems. It doesn't mean, in first instance, of the primary reason of existence to make money, but first you solve problems and then you make money out of it. I think we need to re-incentivize ourselves, and it cannot be done just by government to solve problems with AI. And of course, you use AI for social media, and that I think went into the wrong direction. It will go into the wrong direction, will further regulate it, but I think we need to solve problems with that technology. And in the longer one, I think AI must become a moral partner, a catalyst to improve ourselves. It's not just a peaceful coexistence with AI, forget about that. I think we need to steer it into the direction that it helps to make us better. Just one example, when Aristotle wrote this great philosophy he wrote, he didn't put it into stone himself, no, he used slaves. And at that time it was morally bad, and actually the slave who did it, probably he or she knew it's not nice for me to do it, yeah, but maybe I would say, yeah, but that's how it is. And I think there's a term for forbearance, so we don't need to cancel them away, but I think what the message is, we know what's right or wrong today, society doesn't act like that, but we need to improve, and AI need to be a tool for that. That's what I would say.
Thorsten, I 100% completely agree with that. Yeah, when I think of, let's say, this outcome that we're looking for, the harmonious coexistence of human and machine, we have to recognize that this outcome exists on a spectrum. It's at one end of the spectrum, this perfect world that we are all striving for. And at the other end of this spectrum, there is this meme, the paperclip optimizer, right? You're a factory owner that makes paper clips. You ask your AI to optimize the factory for making paper clips. It consumes all resources, subverts your intent, and destroys humanity in the process of creating nothing but paper clips and paper in the whole world but paper clips. So we definitely don't want this outcome, right? We want to be pushing towards the harmonious coexistence of human and machine. And how do we do that? I think the only way to do that is creating new incentive structures where there is an economic benefit to be able to do this. For every AI agent that I'm going to have out there in the world acting on my will or intention, I also want to have an AI advocate out there making sure that this agent isn't doing the thing that I don't want it to do, or it's not pursuing some bad outcome. So for every agent and advocate, and then how do you ensure that every person has this ability to have an agent for them and an advocate for them, and that they are able to check one another, have some balance, checks and balances of power, so that your advocate can prevent the optimization problem. And I think the way to do that is by creating new incentive models, economic incentive models that empower individuals to be able to do this.
So I know I have some thoughts on specific, but how many of you are an educator in any way? Okay, so one specific proactive action is just helping others become educated about this. We already heard how fast it's moving. The more that people can understand and feel connected to it, the more we can have this humans and machines coexistence, the more people can be aware of where they're at. How many of you are building, supporting, driving some kind of AI automation forward? You're building it, you're selling it, you're doing whatever, okay. How many of you go through all of the good math, checking your errors, checking everything else to make sure that it's good, that it's working well? Wow, that's not as many hands as I would have expected. But, okay, of all of you that are actually checking to make sure that your tech is correct and working right, how many check to make sure that it's a viable business opportunity, that you can actually make some money off of it, right? So we've got these whole notions already of things like statistical significance, practical significance. How many of you, before launching a product or during the design and development, have a conversation about the social impact of your product? A few hands, not as many as how many of you said you're working on these things. So my one practical solution, proactive thing is to make social impact one of the core fundamental processes by which you design. When you are designing for your markets, where you're going is asking yourselves, how is this going to impact the world? How does this impact well-being? Most things aren't neutral, so having that assessment and treating it just like you would a commercial assessment and putting it right there in it is a solution that I would recommend for those who are willing to have that discussion and be more proactive. So with that, we are right at the end. We have about just one moment left. Does anyone have any closing comments that you'd like to share?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, for doing what you're doing, for participating in this AI economy, for teaching the next generation of youth about what lies ahead, for building the products that are going to drive this world forward, for taking the time to sit here and listen to me ramble on about freedom and decentralization in AI. And you are creating the world that we're about to embark on. And thank you very much to all of you.
All for coming to this session. Appreciate it.
Well done all.